Now let's go take a look at the business intelligence template. I've actually got it here in my clipboard. This is one that a lot of you may not have seen, and I wanted to make sure you took a look at it. As you can see, you start off with a very basic template, but what this does is this allows you to set up everything from Power Pivot, Power View, and Excel services, plus the Excel data itself. If you've got anything that you're trying to do with data analysis, this is where you want to start with. Very, very useful. Not a lot of people use it. As you can see down here, when we go to the contents, you've got templates set up to already have your data connections set up, to be able to do your performance point content, reusable content, which means that it can actually be used for templates and working inside. We've already got built in for workflow tasks, the site collection documents that you've seen in images, so we actually can use those in your graphics. So there's a lot here that you can look at to be able to work into place. If we go back to the site contents itself, each one of these will give you more information if you go through and click. Something that a course here in just setting up all of the Power Pivot, Power View, and Excel services information. We are going to touch on a little bit later, but if this is something that's interesting to you, you probably want to do a little bit more in-depth dive with another business intelligence course. So let's go back to our quick community. Again, we're just going to run through these very, very quickly so that you'll at least have seen the sites. And you can see what we're looking at here. So the community site, we've got our discussion, we can see the members, we can see the categories. So what's going on, where we're actually gathering information at. We can actually see the discussions, the badges. If you have a group that you're trying to put everything into place that you want to give people awards, you've got that. Assign the badges to members, reputation settings, and the community settings. So again, we'll do the content very quick. See, we actually have some different items here for the categories, assets, and all the rest. And let's pop back up, and you can actually see that we can actually go through and do reputation settings to allow items in this to be rated, to actually give their reputation for users, to say creating a new post, they get 10 reputation, replying to a post. You can actually chain these up as well, give your achievement levels. This is built to allow you to be able to not just keep track of what's going on to let your users put things into place, but be able to give that reputation system, to be able to let people say, this is better information, this is not. There was a previous concept in SharePoint called power users or experts, and this is the ability to actually let your users kind of self-moderate off of that so they can actually work with it. So that's our community site. Let's go back, and I've already created a developer site. I didn't mention it, but let's go in and at least give you a quick view of that since I've got it created. And you can see here for the developer template, we actually have a quick little piece on how to build an app, publish to the Office Store, use the developer site, apps in testing, so you can actually see that. Go through and see samples, get a link over to the SharePoint Developer Center so that we've got all of that in place. And then our content is fairly simple, but we've got our apps that are packaged up. We've got our microfeed that you saw earlier. We have our apps in testing. This is basically the ability for your developers to come through and create SharePoint apps very quickly and easily. And I'm not going to dive in too much into that. Document Center. Make sure I've got I'm not picking up my sites. And again, Document Center, create and store documents, collaborative repository for authoring documents. At one point, there was a document workspace that SharePoint built into. You'll see a lot of that kind of concept here. It's generally built, this has a lot more capability though for finding specific revisions and documents that you need. You can actually see find by document ID, where the document ID itself is populated. You don't have to wander through and what version is this, whatever. I've got a specific place to look at it. And you can see that we've got the site collection documents in again, the reusable content that we can use through there, images, the styles, workflows. Again, just basically set up so that we can actually go through and put everything in place, but you go back and look at that main page. Once you create your template, you kind of dropped in exactly where you want to take a look at what you have. E-discovery, again, I hope you guys don't need this, but if you do, I'll make sure or if your legal team asks you about it, make sure that you know it's here and what you can answer for. And you can see this is the e-discovery record center, basically records pending submission. This is what comes in. Drop-off library, you've got your record library. These are situations where you submit a report, submit a record of whatever that is, and then it's categorized and managed by the manager, who may be you. Where those records go into place, what they need to be done, additional information gets put on them for each of their content. So their site collection, you see it's fairly simple. Drop off the library and then the record library. Basically the concept is they drop it off. We've got our content has a problem there, but basically you go in, you submit a record, it goes in the drop-off library, their pending submission, which is a special view of the drop-off library, and then once it's finished there, it goes off into the correct repository for it to be stored and managed. So very simple way. Again, the traditional way of the company librarian comes into place in that. We already did the project with our demo, so I'm going to jump over to publish to save a bit of time. Going through these does take a bit of time, I apologize, but it's always good to be able to see what you have. And you can see, we drop into here and you can actually see that for the publishing site, it starts out with what your role is. The information architect, the person who's actually going to figure out how all this stuff is organized, and then the visual designer. I want to import design packages, configure rendering, design the sites, the site templates that are underneath it. Create the information architect deals with creating, configuring site content, how the search center relates to the publishing, because if you're publishing this, you want to make sure it's searched really well. So you actually have all of that in place. We'll take a look at, again, review the site content. You'll see we've actually got things such as pages behind the scenes, which allows you to be able to do customization of how different content is viewed, the documents, the style libraries, the workflow. This all should look a little bit familiar, and then the content and structure reports to be able to come back in and find where everything is. And in previous versions of SharePoint, it sometimes got complex and hard to find that out. You actually had to go do some reports. In this one, it'll actually help you out and go in and take a look at it. We did our e-discovery records. Let's just run over to, let's go to team. Searches, you can actually see some of the searches as we move around through here. Your team site itself is very similar to the project site. Again, a lot of the differences here is on what you want to do with it, what you want to use it for. Site contents will look very similar as well. Again, if you've got something that you want to have customizations on teams, you're spinning up a new team, maybe you want them to review some different things, you can actually put that into the template and actually have that work fairly well. And let's see our Visio. Let me make sure this is coming up for you. And we've got our process diagrams and everything in here. Again, we've got a repository just for those modifications, and then we've got our contents in here, which is very, very simple. Just have those process diagrams that you can render inside the display. And then our last one is our wiki. We'll go look at the wiki very quickly. and then we'll move on to the next section. And you can see here we are dropped straight into the wiki itself. We actually have categories. We actually have page rankings that we can rank it. This is the simple piece here. We can go in and edit the page, and we've got full editor built into it. We can check it out. We can actually go back and save it. And let's jump over. Yeah, we won't do anything. We'll leave the page, and then we come over to the site contents. You can see we've got a lot of information built around that wiki that we can actually set our workflows around the pages being published. We can actually have our images stored here in the site collection to use that. We've got the content and structure reports. Again, just like with the publishing, being able to know where everything is and how to get back to it is very important. We've got our documents that we can store as links in here, and then our pages, which are actually wiki pages that we were just talking about. So you can see the About, Home, and Page Not Found, so we can actually show what comes in there. So this is a quick rundown of the templates that you get out of the box. Again, as you can see, some of them are a very good starting point. Some of them actually have some pieces already in place for you, but all of them are pretty much going to need some TLC when you create them to put things in place. We're going to actually show you how to actually take these and change these a little bit later. But for the next section, we've kind of shown you, like here we've got the pages, we've looked at all these content areas. We're going to actually look at the lists and library templates and know exactly what we're talking about when I say you've got a document library. And once we go through those, then you'll be ready to start doing some data insertion and customization.